Hey everybody, and welcome to the Dungeon Boys. I am Nick, your professional best friend, and this is Jair, the brokey from Albuquerque. Now,
Hi, everybody.
I told you deliberately not to tell me what brokey means.
All right.
Please enlighten me what that is, Jair.
I also mentioned how it's not that big of a thing. It's a Puerto Rican term. I'm sure it's the term in other places, but it's just basically you're brokey. El brokey. You're just the guy.
The guy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, this podcast, we're going to cover, there's two main halves to it. But before we get started, this will probably be the longer of our usual runs because we're going to do the exposition of who we are and what we do. And after that, we'll get into the nice routine. But first, so neither of us are native to Albuquerque.
We are not.
No. Jair here from Puerto Rico, and I myself from Montana. And just weird circumstances brought us here, and we met up through work. Tell them about work.
We work at this rec club. No, I'm kidding. We work at New Mexico Escape Room. I'm not sure if everybody will know what an escape room is. I am not gonna divulge. I'm sure you can understand from the name itself. But basically, we work at this escape room. It's probably the best one here in Albuquerque. We're not,
It's
humble.
pretty fantastic,
It's pretty
and we're very modest about it. I worked there for a year, and right around near the year time, Jair showed up, and we got along and everything. But one thing I was trying to do for a long time was develop my own escape room. You
Right.
just work there all the time. It's why not get involved? And I think I went through like 3 designs, and then I had a concept for one, and the bosses liked it, and so I started designing it. And there's only so much I can do, as I'm not as familiar with actually putting floor plans and such like that together. And being the superhero that he is, Jair kind of swooped in. I don't. Did they ask you, or did you just kind of take the reins on it?
No. So initially, I was never really interested in making an escape room. I was fascinated by them once I started working at the place. But it wasn't until our boss showed us like a plan for one of the newer escape rooms, and I just read the plan for it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is something I can put together. Maybe not the idea behind puzzles and just the concept themes or anything like that, but eventually I just got piqued my interest, as one would say. And between Nick and I, we were just throwing ideas around, and but eventually, yeah, we were asked. Well, I remember they also asked me like, oh hey, just come up with something and see if it's good. And I did something, but it wasn't as professional as probably they thought it would be. So that's why we needed the joint effort of the Nicholas and the Jair.
Yeah, and it sucks because unlike our project today that we're going to be very public and transparent out throughout the podcast, the hook to this room is that it's a mystery.
Oh, yeah.
The theme is a mystery, so we can't talk about the actual room itself. I would love to. I can tell you I was working on a haunted seaboat one. There was an alien one.
Yeah.
And you were working on a museum.
Gallery
heist.
Gallery heist.
Yeah. That was. I'm still not sold that that's not a great idea.
No, I mean I would eventually, when we take over the business.
That's true.
We'll just
Darren and Carrie, our bosses, are not going to listen to this, so they do not know our evil plans. But this one, I'm really proud of it, and I feel like it does a really good. The Nick enthusiasm combined with the Jair concentration, and it was a really good plan.
Yeah.
You know what? We want to use this time to kind of segue right into our next bit here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about games we played recently. See, for the past several years, I've gotten really into the board game hobby. That's why you're here today, I imagine, or you're just friends and family supporting us. Hi, friends and family. But for everybody else, this is a board game podcast primarily. And the first half is me using my veteran powers and influencing Jair here, who is very new to the hobby.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're going to get both the hardened vet take as well as the new guy. And that's not to shortcome Jair, because you pick up games faster than almost anybody I've seen, and I love that. But because we work in escape rooms, we've been really excited, and we're going to start with the Unlock series. Jair, tell us about Unlock.
Well, Unlock is a nice, little, what do you call it, a board game, card game? It's a, you would
card game, but I put them all under the same tabletop umbrella.
No, definitely. Now, coming from our line of work, we're just fascinated by anything escape room, be it good or bad. But Unlock, definitely a great experience, a great, way to, pass an hour around. So Unlocked, it's very different to what you would expect an escape room to be, or an escape room board game, card game would be. You have a deck of cards, and you can either play it by yourself, you can play it with friends, and you're basically laying out a scenario with these cards, and the cards themselves have numbers behind them that you have to use mathematically and intuitively to figure out how to make your way out of this scenario. I mean, it's really difficult to kind of like explain what's going on each one of these, because there's so many different scenarios that each of them just have so many cool things on them.
One of the things that makes them so great is with escape room games, this is like, I think, the fourth or fifth type of escape room game I've seen.
Right.
And we've discussed before, with the other games, they're very legacy based. And what that means is, when you open up an escape room game, there'll be envelopes and stickers and things like that. And to accomplish your means, you're going to have to open up the envelopes. You're going to have to use these stickers. And you have a great time, from my understanding. I have not played them yet. You have one of Exit the game.
I have Exit, the Pharaoh's
we should give that we should give that a shot.
Yeah, definitely.
But when we're done with it, unless you make a serious, sad effort to try and box it all back up and reseal the envelope and put the stickers back on, it's not
replayable.
It's not replayable at all.
Replayable.
And Unlock, where instead of envelopes and things like that, it's just a deck of cards. And that is just revolutionary, really. Because, we only do get to play it once. We have all the Series 1 here. There's 3 sets that have released, and each set has 3 escape rooms. We have set 1 we're looking at today, and we don't need to ever play these ones again. But when we're done, we just shuffle the deck up slightly, and then we can just hand it off to somebody, and they're ready to play. And that is absolutely phenomenal. That changes the game for escape room games, because you can spread the joy, basically.
Communism.
But there are 3 escape rooms in the set 1. What do we have?
So we have in order of how we played them, because we played Squeak and Sausage first, right?
Squeak and Sausage.
Yeah, which is the first of a sequel. Really fun stuff. The first one, I actually played the sequel first, which is interesting. Although you don't need to play the first one to play the sequel, but it's still, if you play it in that order, it still works. Really cool art, really whimsical, funny looking stuff. But that's the cool thing about this. This one could be, weird, funny looking, but then you have another one. This is Squeak and Sausage. You're trying to, what is this? It's escaping a doctor.
Yeah, and it's an evil doctor.
An evil doctor you're trying to escape.
And there's a lot of that in this set 1, but it's a cartoony game. Like when you look at the box art, you aren't sure if he's a clown or if he's a doctor.
Right.
And it's really wacky. Whereas the other 2 games here are super serious aesthetic.
Yeah, and next up, our favorite, The Island. Unlock Escape Adventures, The Island.
The Island of Dr. Gorsey, I think.
Ooh. is. Oh, wow.
So, Squeak and Sausage, on the back of each box, if you're ever interested in Unlock, look on the back and you will see that there are 3 little locks on there. And for however many that are red, that's the difficulty. If there's only 1 red one, it's an easy one.
Right.
2 is an intermediate, and a 3 is an expert. Well, Squeak and Sausage is a level 2, but it's really not. That's the easiest one we've played. And if you've never played him, I recommend Squeak and Sausage. And we were getting good at these. We both had played these only solo, but without spoiling anything, Island of Dr. Gorsey needs at least 2 people. And you'll understand when you open it up. So I was like, hey, Jair, we're to do this podcast, so we might as well play this together. You have an hour to escape. If you don't escape the app, this game is based with an app with a timer and gives you hints and everything.
Something important.
Yeah, so make sure you have like a phone or a tablet or something. And it keeps track of your time, much like an escape room.
Right.
And we blew through Squeak and Sausage, and we blew them through others. And we get this island, and we have 1 hour. Tell them how it went.
Well, it blew us up. Now, so yeah, I mean,
104 minutes.
104 minutes.
Oh God.
Needless to say, we did not do good, but we did have a great time playing it. It's just like so many concepts that. And just because of the whole format of it being cards, it's even if you're good at escape rooms, even if you deal with escape rooms all the time, it's still something a little different, and you trying to wrap your head around it, trying to figure out how these cards correlate with each other, like and there's cards that you have to just look very carefully at because you might find like a hidden secret inside of them. But in this one, just so many puzzles that use the mechanic of having 2 people.
Yes.
In that can't communicate well with each other. That's like part.
We don't want to spoil too much for them.
Yeah.
But the concepts in each game are very off, and how they translate to how the abstract of the cards translates to real life and problem solving, does vary.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work too well. There's a couple boxes we've worked with which we're like, really, is that the answer? And even though we got our butts kicked by the Island of Dr. Gorsey, it wasn't one where we were like, we didn't feel cheated.
Right.
It was us.
Right.
And it's something important. If you can walk away from one of these salty and still say that was really great, whereas Squeak and Sausage, that was easy as pie. Like we blew through it as escape room experts and did fine. Island of Dr. Gorsey wiped us out, but made sense. It just definitely deserves the 3 lock difficulty
level.
And then yesterday, tell them about yesterday.
So yesterday we played the Unlock Escape Adventures, the Formula, which we also played a team of 2. Now, this is not necessary to play as a trooper. You can play it on your own. But we did play it as 2. We just, split our tasks and responsibilities and figuring out how to find this formula. Now, this one has like some very, very, very interesting puzzles and things to them. I don't. Let's see. So I don't want to spill all the beans.
Yeah.
But just certain puzzles, so something really cool with these games is that, like we mentioned, they do use an app. So this app lets you, it has the timer. It gives you hints as well. You can ask for hints on the app, but it also, whenever you're trying to input a code, you just tap the button that says code. So you can, put a code. It asks you, well, if you got the right code, you get it, and you get it right. And if it doesn't, it takes time up.
That is a weird thing. Yeah. And the other escape rooms I've heard do that with wrong codes, things like that. You can lose time. But I think for the app that makes sense.
Yeah.
You lose penalty that way because if you have more casual people who just want to be right, they could guess things 1,000 times over, and that's not good.
Right.
This one, it's a 2 level.
Mm-hmm.
It and Squeak and Sausage are both level 2. And while I think Squeak and Sausage is definitely a level 1, I would argue that the formula is definitely a level 2.
It is.
And, I think of the 3, spoiler, I love all 3 of them. It's probably my least favorite of the 3, but it's just that they're all so good.
Right.
But it was probably my favorite one to play with us. This sounds
Yes.
weird. It was my favorite to play with us because there were several times where one of us dropped the ball. We just, not dropped the ball, but we could not figure it out. And the other one would just alley-oop and dunk. And it was just so satisfying to watch, oh, I don't get it. And the other person go, oh, wait, I figured it out.
Yep.
And it felt like the best parts of an escape room easily are when that person next to you gets it, when you didn't, and then you pick up the slack where they left off. And that one, whereas Island of Dr. Gorcy forces that, and like I said, we just got our butts kicked, so we were barely doing that. The formula is excellent, and really, you can test your teamwork with that one. I don't know about Squeak and Sausage, only because we both played solo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure all, like, that's the thing. Yeah, you can play it on your own. How many people can you play with? I mean, it says 6.
It says up to 6. I wouldn't play with more than 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, I think it would be like very hectic because since there's so many cards that you have to lay out, everyone have to, like, the more people you have, like in an escape room, the more people you have, it's actually better.
It can be.
It can be better. It can be worse, but it definitely helps. But I think with these, there's a lot of communication going on if you're playing it with more people than just yourself. Which might get lost. There are a bunch of cards laid out in the table. If someone missed the one card that they need from what they're trying to focus on, it might be a little hectic. But I mean, we've only played it with just us two, so we'll have to see how it works out.
With this, we've played some other ones from other series. We might wait to review those ones until we've played the full sets.
Yeah.
But this is set 1, which again is the formula, the Island of Dr. Gorcy, and Squeak and Sausage. And Jair, thumbs up, thumbs down. How do you feel about this?
Unlock games.
Unlock set 1.
I'm gonna go like Shigeru Miyamoto. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Yeah, I as an escape room enthusiast, as a board game enthusiast, they're both very unique experiences, and the fact that they combine well with this, and it's something we can pass around.
Yeah.
It's $15 for a one-time play, but the fact that you can hand it off to dozens of friends, and they can all play it as well, I feel all the value is there.
You can just stare at them while they squirm and struggle and cry.
If you want to know what our job is, buy this game and play it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Once you know what it is, hand it to your friend and watch them play it.
Exactly.
They'll hit that point, especially if they're by themselves. They cannot figure it out, and they're struggling, and they're just getting frustrated. And you can just poke the bear a bit and say, "Did you think of that?
Yeah.
Did you think?" Like maybe whisper, "You're looking at it the wrong way," something like that. And you're gonna watch like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" And do that. And that's our job. Right. Our job is literally just doing that for people every day.
Yeah.
And so if you want to know what being an escape room master is, buy and unlock, play it, learn it, watch your friend play.
Oh yeah.
That's the best experience this game gave me.
Yeah.
Was playing one of these and then handing it to our bosses and watching them. And I never thought I'd get to be the game master for our bosses. So that was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a 2 thumbs up from both of us.
Oh yes.
And I imagine that's going to happen a lot. I'm going to spoil it right now. Early on, I'm going to be showing you all the games I like. And we seem to have some similar taste. But, of course, we're all open to being honest here. And our next game we have actually was not necessarily scheduled, but we had a chance to play it yesterday. And we're kind of running on more first impressions with you. But we're running with Pictomania. Pictomania is a Czech Games Edition game by Vlada Shivadl, who is just one of my favorites. In Pictomania, everybody has paper, and there are cards laid out. 3 cards with all sorts of things on them, and you get tiny, I'm going to say cards a lot here, follow me along. So there's big cards with stuff on them, lists of things. and you get tiny cards that tell you which one of those words you're working with. Let's say you have doll and I have dragon. When the time goes, we have to draw out our thing as fast as we can. It's not a game of draw it as nice as you can. It's how fast and comprehensive you can draw it.
Right.
And then when you're done, you pick up you have another little stack of cards. This is not nearly as complicated as I'm making it sound. But and they have numbers on them, and you're trying to figure out what everybody else has. And when you think you know what they've drawn, when I see doll, I look at the number for doll, it's 2. I take 2 and I slap it down in front of you. And there's also, it's not just a 2-player game. It's 3 to 6.
3 to 6.
Definitely recommend it at 4 to 6.
Yeah.
And
How
I've
many
never
people
played.
were playing?
Oh, we had 6.
6, yeah.
And it's just so frantic and high blood pressure in the best fun kind of stress.
Yeah, definitely a party game.
So yeah, and it's really funny to watch people will draw one thing, but there's something else on the list that's like that. Yeah. I think oh wow. The best one last night for me was someone had drawn a big tall clock with kind of a bridge next to it. And there's all sorts of wonder, I don't know what to call them.
Like
Johnny monuments and buildings and such.
Yeah.
And one of them said Big Ben. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you see a big clock in a tower.
And that was number 2. So everyone was slapping down number 2s on it. He had drawn Big Ben to represent Britain, so the bridge next to it, you'd be like, oh, that's London Bridges. He did not see Big Ben on there, and he blew it. And just everyone yelling, because everyone loses points and stuff for being wrong, and just the hilarity of that.
But he also loses points for having people guess wrong, right?
Yeah, you could potentially be punished for being wrong yourself,
right.
But you don't want people to be wrong with your own.
Exactly.
Because you will lose points for however many people did not guess yours right. And it's a lot of little rules. This is a new version. The old Pictomania was a little more convoluted, just a lot more than it should have been. And this is a streamlined, better party version. It's like less than half the price. But tell me your impressions of this.
So I think like there's a like recurring theme of the kind of games I like. I mean that. I definitely do enjoy playing games like a team of 2 with you, stuff like that. But party games, I just love party games. We played Fun Employed, and this one goes into that same line. I mean, the people we played with last night, I didn't know any of them.
Nope.
I didn't know any of them.
This is my gaming crew. My game store that I go to, Etten in Albuquerque. Big shout-outs to Etten Games and Hobbies. Oh, yeah. They have one in Houston as well. But at the Albuquerque one, Tuesday nights, we go down to board games. And I'm very familiar with a lot of them. Even that said, I didn't know most of the people playing.
Right.
And it's really hard to get people you don't know to sit down and learn a big, huge game. But when people enthusiastically get ready for a party game, you'll watch them kind of melt like, okay, I'll give it a shot. This does look simple. It's a pad of paper, a couple cardboard tokens, and some cards. Yeah. It's not a giant board game being set up, and super approachable. So Jair here, I stuck him with 5 other people who he had never met.
Yeah, no, and I mean, by the end of it, we were all just laughing at each other for the dumb, weird drawings we were trying to make, and trying to make sense of the game. And it was like us versus the game, because it would throw us into these very, very specific things we had to draw. Someone had to draw
integrity,
morals, integrity.
Oh,
by
morals.
that time, most of them had given up. But yeah, the game gets
it's worth mentioning. The game starts off really easy.
Right.
Comb, doll, dragon, that sort of thing, and then it's head over heels. You're up to your ears, like phrases. And by the end of the game, it's like draw respect. Like you can't abstract the word either. You have to draw your idea of respect.
Right.
And it's so every game I've ever played, even with people who've played before, we will set up new cards, and they always go, "Wait, what? No way! How am I going to draw morals?" And God, so terrible.
Who drew more? Like someone drew morals.
Yeah,
and it was a lucky shot because he drew kind of like an angel-looking guy. But the thing is, there was morals, but in that same list there was integrity,
which is what I thought that was.
Sincerity, honesty, and all these abstract terms. And you're like, how do you put this? But a lucky shot. A lot of people got that right.
Yeah, that was. It's really fun when people like get it by luck. A really great example is back in the day. The last time I played it, back in the day, just a couple weeks ago when I played this last, the red cards. There was one red card that said employer, employee, customer, investor. Just imagine getting employer, and you're like, how do I differentiate this from investor? How do I make this clearly the one I want people to guess? But for me, I absolutely love this game because in the Pictionary world, we all know Pictionary, and it can be fun with the teams and everything. This game has everybody drawing, every round, everybody guessing. And in doing so, it's just so much more engaging. I'm not too crazy personally about team-based games. There's a couple. We'll try Codenames out. We'll try a couple of those out. But for the most part, I don't like to rub it in people's faces. You know, hey, your team is dumb, and it's just one or two people struggling and bringing the team down. I don't like to make them feel bad. If we're all playing independently, then I can totally trash talk you. It's fine. But I also am afraid if I'm trash talking, maybe it's because I'm relying on Jair to carry my team. And there's no carrying each other in Pictomania. No. You want to score more points than everybody, so you want to guess everybody else's stuff first and correctly. But you also want them to guess your stuff. Right. And that's just the perfect blend of the genre.
And the cool thing is also, since you're given 7 cards, right? 1 through 7. It's just numbered cards, and those are the cards you use to guess what the drawing is. But you can actually guess off certain drawings if you don't really get it. You just see what cards you have left that you haven't used, and you're pretty sure you're right on the other ones. And you just kind of like logically use the list that you have and logically deduce what drawing you got is still trying to figure out, which I guess that would be like for more experienced players. They would use that like logic. But that's not even.
There is logic deduction, part of it. But the thing is, here's the catch: is you get more points the faster you finish.
Oh, exactly.
And so if you sit there for too long and try to do math, usually when you get down to your last one or so, you can try and use the process of deduction. At this point, it's just getting a point where it's hard to describe Pictomania, but as far as how the deduction works. But once it's put in front of you, if you look up an image of Pictomania, you get it. I took 2 pictures. We'll be uploading them onto the Instagram. But there's 2 modes to the game. Frantic drawing, and everybody's just nose to their paper, and they're sketching it out. And the next one, where they're all staring at the cards and looking around at other people's stuff. And it's just everybody's got big grins, and all you hear is, what is that? What are you going for? Oh my God, that's what it is. And you keep hearing the slaps of the cards as they're laying them down. So this one, not only I like, but I think for me, my fun story is I went to Gen Con volunteering for Czech Games Edition. And I spent the week teaching Galaxy Trucker. But I saw Pictomania. It was the hot new game. Well, new version, but it's whatever. And I wasn't sold on it. It looked just kind of... When you look at this game, it looks very childish. It looks very like, this is something I'll give to my 8-year-old.
Right.
It looks that way. And so I was a little apprehensive. But they gave us all a copy at the end of the day because they're fantastic people. And I sat down and played it. I was like, you know what? Let's give this a shot, a really hard-earned shot. And it's, as far as drawing games, it's my current favorite. It's incredible. I'm going to actually recommend it. Not just I like it, but I'm going to full-on recommend Pictomania.
How do you think an 8-year-old would try to put morals into a picture.
Okay, now to be fair, if you're going to play with 8-year-olds, you probably don't go to the level 4 cards where you have to draw respect. You probably stick with draw the pony or draw like maybe to level 2 cards. I don't know. Depends on how genius your.
And I didn't see that. There's 99 double-sided cards.
Yes. There are 99 different cards, and each one has 2 sides to it. There's a lot of content, a lot of replayability. But yeah, I'll never go back to playing Pictionary. I will never. Illustrations. I don't know if you played that one. It's like the old telephone game, but with drawings.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah. It's good. A lot of people like it, and it's easy to understand. But for me, I'm sold on Pictomania. Full on recommendation. I was gonna recommend Unlock, but I noticed one incident gave me that I just like it. I like it. I don't know if I can give it the full recommend because at work we had a coworker and she said we had a slow day, and so I was going to hand those off to her and say, hey, play these. And she goes, oh, okay. I don't really want to. I was like, what? Not everyone enjoys my hobby. And her response, no, it's work for me, and it's puzzles, and so if you like puzzles and you like figuring them out, you want Unlock, but It's not one I can necessarily just totally recommend. Whereas Pictomania, the only reason I don't feel you're gonna like why would you not buy Pictomania?
Well, we actually had someone try and play yesterday.
Yeah.
But she just said like, oh, I'm just not I'm not quick.
She's a very precise artist, and I feel like when you pick the game up and you look at it, you will realize no, that's not for me.
No, because you want to draw as quick as possible. You want your drawing to come out as quick so you can start guessing the other drawings. So I mean, you're trying to go as basic, as quick, and as clear as possible.
And that's the trick.
Yeah.
In the fun fact, in the manual, there's a whole lot of drawings. They're Vlada's kids. He had them sit down and they played a game, and he kept all their drawings.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the centaur is a stick figure with a box in the back and legs at the end of the box. So it's a horse. Like, it's clearly, and I was like, that's really clear. And it took him all of 6 seconds to draw. So no, it's not for everyone, and I don't like games necessarily that are made for everyone. But I feel you will pick up Pictomania, you will look at it, and you will know immediately if this is a game for you. And with this enthusiasm, I feel like if you hear me and you like what you hear, there's no reason to say no.
Right.
How do you feel?
No, such an easy game to pick up on. Like you don't have like there is kind of like a point structure trying to like sum this up. But once you do the first round, you understand what you have to do. This is definitely really fun game, and like I said, I just love party games in general. I'm sure there's really bad ones out there, but so far so good. Pictomania, 2 thumbs up.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna I don't know if we have gold stars, but I'm gonna go ahead and say Pictomania might be our first gold star.
Gold star.
Yeah, that's just an easy choice for us.
Yeah.
Vlada, I've exposed you a couple of Vlada games. We're going to be talking about him at some. We're probably just going to have one episode that's just Vlada games, but it's really fantastic. He knows how to have people interact with each other, and his games aren't for everyone. We're going to come across a couple that you may love or hate. We were talking about Space Alert yesterday.
Right.
That's really the only way you're coming out of it. You're going to love it or hate it. But it is really good, and I'm happy to recommend it. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the last game. We're going to talk about 2 to 3 games a podcast. And for the next couple, I would say months, we are going to be talking 3. We're going to talk about 2 games plus our big boy.
Ooh.
And we are talking about Scythe, specifically, though, the Rise of Fenris. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what Scythe is, so you can follow along. But if you want to just explain the basic idea of Scythe.
Scythe, I guess you have the better vocabulary on what it would be, but it's basically, how do you call that? Yeah.
And see, this is the thing. You're new to this, so I want to hear your new... I have all my technical board game terms, but you go ahead and describe it in your new...
So, basically, it's either... It kind of works like a engine building game, I guess. You're trying to build yourself up. You are a country in a war-torn continent of Europa, and you're trying to build yourself up and become the better country out of all the other ones that are war-torn. But it's a big game. It's a hefty game. It's easy to pick up if you've played other games like it. I mean, what would you call something like Rise of Tribes, which is a game we played a bit ago, but it's a kind of like a heavier game. It takes us about 2-3 hours.
2 to 3 hours
to get it going, but once you get it, and just everything about it, it's just so, I don't know, just aesthetically, just so pretty, so engaging. You have mechs that you have to build, and a really cool thing is that you have these mechs, but there's also these events that you can trigger, and these event cards just give you a weird, goofy
personality to your campaign.
Personality to your campaign on what you kind of country you are, and you see the word Scythe in it. You see dark 1920s war-torn times. But then you have these goofy things going on about it that kind of build the game into something else. Now, this is something, I'm sure this is one of those games that me being someone that hasn't played that many games, this is one of those games that I know for sure you can't bring to your family get together and say hey, let's play Scythe. You need the right people for this game, for sure. You need the people with the patience and the people that can
the enthusiasm, and the comprehension of what's going on. So that was the newbie way to look at it, and I like that take a lot. This is a medium, light, somewhat heavy game of area control, resource management, engine building, all the goodies that board games offer. It's the weird thing that comes for me is that it is a war game, but it is not a war battling game. Yeah. This comes right after the Great War. It's set in a universe called the 1920 Plus, and the Great War has just finished, and you're kind of thrown into it saying, fix it. I've told Jair before, my big hook to this game is that I really got into it when I was listening to my World War I podcast, and at the end of the game, they were at the end of World War I, everyone's tired, exhausted, and just ticked off with each other. Everyone's broken, nothing's working, and they would hire on these generals and say, hey, welcome to the team, fix it. Scythe gives you, all your moves early on are sluggish and terrible and just don't work, and they're awful. And you have to take them and slowly upgrade them, work your army the best you can, build them up as well as you can and get the right resources. And eventually, you do one little thing that helps you out a little more and a little more. And by the end of it, you just have this well-polished engine. You've done it. You've brought yourself back up to glory. And you can use that however you like. Get all the resources. Go beat up other people if you want. This game does not have a lot of battling. I think last week, maybe yesterday, has the 3-4 battles. I think, there were 4 battles, and that was the most I've ever had in a Scythe game. Most, on average, there's 2 in a 2 to 3 hour game.
Even then, they weren't decisive battles that turned the game around.
They did not decide the game.
They just happened because I think they just had to happen. We had laid out our pieces around the board.
Because one of the hooks of this game is that there's achievements.
Right.
And that's, if you ever played in a video game, when you get kind of the extreme of something, there's an achievement involved, and that's how you dictate the speed of the game, is you have stars. And you get to put down a star whenever you accomplish these, and they're a lot easier than they sound. You have workers. You only have 2 on the board, and then there's, I think, 8 other ones sitting around. Guess what? If you get all those workers on the board, that's an achievement. We mentioned we have mechs. You get all your mechs on the board. That's an achievement. Win a battle. That's an achievement. So while you don't necessarily want to fight, maybe you'll get that extra star you need if you get into one.
Right.
And in doing so, you have 6 stars, but there's 11 objectives. And so you can choose how to build up your stars. And one of the critiques I always heard about this game is that it's very samey. You were going to go through the same thing over and over. You know, I haven't stuck with an army for very long, so maybe that's true.
How many armies there are?
There are 7 total. 5 in the base game, 2 with the expansion. I've played 6 times, and this is the first time I'm playing with one I've played with before. But every game has been so different. Right. This game, I got some lightning fast early on stuff. Another player was not being careful about. He set all of his resources, and a fun thing is, in most resource building games, you will take the resource from the board and add it to your area, and it's yours. You do your thing. In this game, all the resources are just put on the board, and you have to use them from the board. And if you don't use them, they sit there. Well, he had started building a whole bunch of metal, which is how you make mechs, and he just had a pile of it. And he had no defenses. And it was like he was begging me to, so I just came over and took it from him. And he just looked at me like, how could you? And I was like, how could I not? and I felt so bad for him. But it was like, I had and I used all of his metal to build my own mechs. And he just had this face like you betrayed a kitten. And I was like, I don't know. I'm so sorry, but this is...
He lost all of his metal and got a lot of salt.
Oh my god. So yeah, this game we both really love, but what makes this game special are the expansions. Coming from Stonemaier Games, this is a passion project from Jamie Stegmaier, and he has made Scythe, which also day one came with an expansion, Invaders from Afar, which added the other 2 factions.
Right.
Then the second one was the Wind Gambit, which uses airships, and they're really cool airships, though we admittedly just haven't used them yet.
Yeah, we haven't played
I'm excited to one day, but we haven't used them quite yet. And then the third one, which just came out, is called Rise of Fenris. And what this does, what makes this unique is that it adds a campaign to the game. 8 missions that tell a story based on how you play and what you do, and you don't know what's coming around the corner. Oh my goodness. I've been really hard on to try and find campaign games, but no one would play, and a lot of them required a certain number of players. The great thing is Scythe got itself rooted in the community. Everyone knows what Scythe is. Mm-hmm. You don't have to convince them to play it. It's, oh, I want to play Scythe. And then they're like, now, would you like to play a campaign of it with a story? And the results were an overwhelming yes, please. For the next, there's 8 missions. We are going to play 1 a week. Oh my gosh.
The long con, boys.
It's the long con. So you're going to get little bits of updates. We don't want to spoil the story too much. I was thinking about this last night. We may talk some spoilers for episode 1, but if you're listening for Rise of Fenris and you're like, ooh, I wouldn't worry too much about episode 1 spoilers. No, they're really, really weak, and they're not. Yeah. They're not.
You were worried because you had kind of like read a little bit too much.
I think I've stumbled upon something for much later in the game.
Oh, okay.
Much later, and that's fine. That's fine. It happens. But this one, there's not a lot of story. I think actually telling you how this works will give you an idea of how excited to get for the game.
Yeah. It's basically a base game of Scythe that first day.
Yeah, the first week is just play Scythe.
It does have a couple more, or just the one.
There was only 2 special rules to this one. Is there was an extra way to get a star, and then if you're the first person to get a star for something, like say you're the first one to get mech for mechs, or the first one for workers, there were these things called influence tokens added to the game from Rise of Fenris, and we'll discuss what those do in a bit. But that changed the game so much.
Oh yeah.
One thing I've never seen is someone actually get all of their workers out, because you produce in the game, you produce resources, and you produce more workers. The more workers you produce, the more labor intensive it is to produce in the future. At first, it's free. And then you have to start paying some of your military power. Then you have to pay military power and popularity. And if you max it all out and you choose to produce again, we're talking military power, popularity, and coin.
Every time you produce.
Every time you produce, and that's expensive. So I never see people usually get more than 3-4 people on the board.
I actually play it safe. I only on my game I only had one person produce. That given, I did not do good last game.
But even like I've watched Jamie's videos, and he says more often than not you're not going to need more than like 4 workers.
Right.
And he's right. But because that was an objective no one else had taken. Evan, we were playing with.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about these. We're playing with 6 people total, and if you want to follow along in the game for the next several weeks, we're all going to be running the same factions. For the most part, we'll see if that changes.
Right.
Depends if the campaign says so. We're really excited for the twists and turns. Let's see. The great thing is that it's a weird sci-fi universe, but it's all based on World War I Europe, Eastern Europe. For instance, there's a Saxony team. We didn't use the Saxony this time, but Jair, who are you running for the campaign?
I am the Crimean Cannonate.
Yes.
And basically, well, I mean, I'm not really sure geographically, but how my faction plays kind of like the Huns. Just go in there, wreck everything up, and go back again.
Yeah, they run around a lot, and the game does not have a lot of good mobility. Everyone moves sluggishly, as you would in World War I. So the Crimeans are kind of flying around.
They can jump around spots like crazy.
We had Thunder, that is his name, and he is running the Shogunate. The expansion comes with the not Armenian. I forget their names. The British. I can't remember. Yeah, there's the British and the Shogunate, and he's running the Shogunate, who
have a killer strategy move on them, which he didn't use at all.
He did not use it all, and it broke my heart. Well, he was the one I messed up.
Right.
Yeah, I messed up. I warned him ahead of time, and Isaiah, that they are running the expansions, which are slightly more advanced teams, and they were like, yeah, that's fine. But I think they learned in that game that they really are advanced. I think next week they're going to come in.
Hopefully they can get the most out of their team, their factions, because the Shogunate though has those traps.
They lay traps on the board, and when you enter that area, it gets sprung, and just awful things start happening. Like, oh no, oh crap, oh god. And I've watched someone's whole score be destroyed because of one trap. The more popularity you have, the more your rewards at the end of the game will be.
Right.
That's the temptation of you getting more popularity. Is instead of for every star you have getting 3 money, maybe you'll get 4 money.
Right.
And that's a huge difference. It really all adds up. We had a guy who was at the 2nd level of popularity, right in the middle doing that. I mean, you just get a lot of points, really cool. But then he's like, okay, I don't want to start any fights. I don't want to lose any popularity. I'm just going to move into the spot where I had laid a trap. We flipped it over, lose popularity, and it lost just enough that he went from the 2nd level to the 1st. And he just screamed. He was so sad. But the Shogunate are great, and I think once Thunder really grasps who he's working with here, he's going to be deadly because they're ridiculous. Then we have Adrian. Mm-hmm. Adrian's running Polania. It's Poland, but it's Polania, and he was doing really well.
He was on his own corner doing his own thing. He was not approaching. Well, he did start some fights, which I was like, oh, nice.
You were picked on quite a bit.
Yeah, but I was also doing my own thing, and I feel comfortable with the game I played. But because he came what? He came 2nd, or was he?
He was 2nd or 3rd, I think.
But he still got. I mean, the thing is, he wasn't able to get any of the influence coins because he got all the achievements you had already.
He was not able to build his engine as fast as I was, so he was always on my trail. And because of that, like I said, the influence token only goes to whoever puts their star on that spot first. It was I felt really bad for him on that, but I was like, this is I usually play games. I'm very competitive, and I'm able to put like kind of a leash on myself and say, hold back. Like, okay, go ahead and win the game, but don't curb stomp people. And this campaign, there's a lot of newer people, but I know Adrian has played a lot, and Evan, who hasn't played in months, you saw him pick it up. We'll talk about him in a second, and we all just. I was like, this is war. We have to jump in. But Adrian did very well, and I think he's going to be a huge threat as we continue this game, especially in the next chapter. Then we had Isaiah, who was running Connor of the Albions. Albions is the British. I was trying to remember that term. He, I think, is going to be so much more dangerous in the next game.
Yeah, because he got to understand what his flax could do.
Yeah, whereas Thunder got really distracted by the struggles.
Your curb stumping.
Yeah. I hit him really hard, and he mentally, I felt, just never quite recovered from it. Isaiah, no one necessarily messed him up, but he also didn't do much of anything. And I think he just took that turn to learn how his team works. And the great thing is unless the game says otherwise, we're all going to be using the same people.
Right.
So everybody at the end of this is going to be better with their team. And so he didn't do great, but I do have confidence he's going to come in and do some nasty stuff in the next game. And the important thing is he still had fun. And this game is great because you still build an empire. You still look out at what you did. And for the most part, I would say you feel satisfied at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Evan was running the Nordic, and... he was the one that made all of his workers, and we've never seen that many workers on the board before. And the mechs are huge. In the game, the idea is that they're so huge they can carry people around, and he would just lift all 8 of them with one mech, and it was just kind of like a mama and her babies, like a mama duck, and it was just so fun to watch him just transport everyone around. And I don't think he scored too well in the game. But
he did get an influence going.
He did get an influence going.
Yeah.
This game, that was important. And he did fairly well. And I just know Evan's one you can't shirk on because I would say the difference between him and myself. Do you know the difference between strategy and tactics? Strategy is a chess thing where you know as soon as you walk in, here's my first move. Here's the first thing I'm going to do. I know what my whole long-term plan is.
Right.
And Evan seems to be amazing at strategy. He is so good at that. And I'm not saying he's bad at it, but where he shines in strategy, my thing and why I like the games I do is I like tactics. And that's in the moment. Here's a twist.
Right.
And that's... Today and yesterday I played the Russviets, the Russians, and it was great. It was good times. When it told us you only get an influence token if you're the first one to put a star, I was like, I didn't know if I could get an engine up, but I knew I needed to throw out 2 or 3 stars before everyone else put down on the popular ones like battles and objectives. Right. I was like, I need to get these stars first, and I just made that a priority. The game warns you in Rise of Fenris, you can't just play Scythe like you usually do. You have to play
the long game.
You have to learn what it wants you to do, and that's going to give you success. And so when it said, first person gets the token, I was like, I don't know what these do yet, but I'm going to want them.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. We didn't know what
it didn't tell you what it does. And so we just I ended up winning. I do chalk that up to the fact that I was the most experienced one. And I really think that was the factor. But I did choose... Okay, so we're going to go into spoiler territory. Skip a few minutes ahead because it's really not that important. But at the end of the game... You had your chance. There it is. Everybody has some influence tokens. You at least have one. I was the first person to drop a star on each one of my 6 stars. So I had 6 influence tokens, plus the one we get at the end of the round. So I had 7. Everybody on average was running about 1 or 2.
1 or 2, yeah.
And you use these to cast votes. We have finished the Great War. No one really wants to start war again. So the game asks, now you as a team will decide. Do you want war or peace? And what it does is where Scythe is do whatever you want. Do you want to build an engine? Do you want to do you want to fight people? Do you want to be confrontational? And you can do all this stuff. What do you want to specialize in the next game? If we choose war, it's going to be a combat-heavy game.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be doing a lot of fighting. If we choose peace, it's going to do more of a resource engine-building game. And everyone just stared at me with my big old hand, and they're like, we have to vote peace. We have to all vote peace together, and maybe we'll have enough coins to outbid him.
I didn't know what way you were swinging. I just said
I kept it secret.
Yeah.
Evan knows. Evan knows me because he's Euro guy. He likes Euros, and he's like, and he said, I'm letting you all know I'm voting peace. I'm not even like making it a mystery. That's what I'm doing, and I knew he was going to do that, and I was thinking about it.
And yeah, no, like it would have been fine if we all did peace, but I broke the boat. Because everyone, you had 6 tokens, but everyone else had, like, there were at least 8 tokens
enough.
in play.
You could all outvote me as a unit. And so everyone's like, okay, we think he's going to vote for war. And you put them in different hands. Left, you put your tokens in for left if you want war, on the right I want peace. So I have my hands in front of them. I already made my decision. They're like, we think he wants war. So if we all vote peace, we can outvote him. We don't want the guy who beat the snot out of us to play an aggressive game. We don't want him to play the game he wants.
Well, you didn't like combat us to your victory. You built your engine pretty well.
I also had an evil grin at the end because I had figured out, I had a good idea of what the influence tokens did. I told you, I was like, I think I know what these do, and I did figure it out. Everyone else voted peace. Yeah. I voted war, and it was going to be peace, except
I voted war as well with my 2 tokens.
You did that, and the whole group looked at you like you had punched them in the gut and insulted their mother, and it was hilarious. I was not the one who started war. Jair did.
Yeah, I did start the war. Now, this is something I like board games. And I'm sure there's people that like board games and they like to win. I like to just play the game, and even if I lose, I just want to have fun. And I think the best way to have fun is to be an agent of chaos and do what people don't want to do.
That does work.
That does. Hate me
there are some games that does not work well with. I have a game over here, Inish. I want to play with you sometime. And it's very sophisticated. It's a very sophisticated war game where you all have to play at your absolute best. Because if you just decide to throw it out, now to be fair, you never just threw logic out the window, but you didn't mind stirring the pot and getting things a little messy.
I like stirring the pot.
We've had chaotic people before, but when you play pure chaos in Inish, you don't have fun, and it's miserable. Yeah. You do have to play with we definitely want to win.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm playing the game like I'm building my engine and then just doing crazy. Well, you
weren't bombing anybody. That's the thing is you say chaotic. You don't play that chaotic, and that's a really nice thing to have, because when people say chaotic, you're to watch a lot of board gamers tense up. Like, is he just gonna go wild? Like, he's not gonna make any sensible moves. And you made one really dumb move.
But it was because I didn't know what I was
you misunderstood that concept. Yeah. He threw a mech at me and then died. And it was so funny. It was like, wait, what?
I wanted to get my popularity down.
He was trying to accomplish an objective that involved dropping popularity, but he didn't understand that he was going to lose the fight and not lose popularity because of it.
Yeah.
So I just looked cooler. But no, and so next week we are just going to open up Scythe again. We all have a track. We have a piece of paper that tells us what we do. Really, and it's going to track our upgrades and everything as we go along. There's permanent upgrades that you'll add to your campaign and stuff. Really excited to see how those more develop as we go. But because we voted war, the two of us, the Dungeon Boys versus the world, next game we're going to be talking about the aggressiveness and the cool stuff. We are going to be a little less spoilery. I do not want to ruin the game for people who are interested. And if you think this sci-fi World War I mech game sounds great, you definitely want to pick up Scythe. Someone else said it before, but I would say Rise of Fenris could be your first expansion. You could ignore the other ones and go straight to it.
Yeah, because you can play with it without the other expansions.
No, and you don't need them. We aren't using the Wind Gambit at all, and we're only using the expansion characters because we had more people show up. But if you only have 1 to 5 people, the game has a solo mode. I've never played it, but it has solo mode. I've heard great things. Scythe is an incredible game. It's probably in my top 10. It's climbing up there, and I think the Rise of Fenris is going to just jettison it up higher. How do you feel about Scythe so far?
So I think this would be... Yeah, we haven't played any other games this big, right?
Mm-hmm. This is the biggest one we have played.
Yeah. And
there's like one or two other ones we played that are equally thick, maybe, but this is the one we're invested in.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, I usually never play board games. I would play like video games most of the time. Civilization, it's just like the one game I really got into. A lot of RTS, Sense of Solar Empire, which is like resource management. It's like strategy. You're trying to get the best resources and stay away from battles or engage into battles. And I think this is probably one of those, like the best representation of that thing I like about these video games in a board game. And it's just really fun, and even if I'm not winning, I'm still having fun because I'm still, you're looking out for your own empire, but you're also looking on to make sure the other ones don't beat you in the game. But by the end of it, you're like, oh, well, I mean, I did my thing, and next time I'll do better because now I know what kind of things to look out for,
I do want to pause. I think it's going to show up here. I live right next to a school, and this is the shrieking hour, I guess, and they're all yelling. If it shows up in the audio, that's what it is. We are not skinning cats in the back. What you're talking about, so this is one of the best parts about this podcast. What you're talking about there, for the most part, is a Euro aspect.
Okay.
There's a lot of different ways you can classify games. I like to tell people, and there's going to be game people that just cringe when I say this, there's three main kinds of board games. Cooperative,
Okay.
Euro, and Ameritrash. Cooperative games are just kind of their own because you are cooperating together. There's no conflict. You're working together to accomplish.
Example?
Would
like
be Pandemic,
Okay.
Forbidden Island, The Grizzled. Ooh, I love that game. Unlock.
Right.
We
Okay.
both are trying to.
Okay.
This feels almost more like a puzzle than it does a game, maybe. But you are all working together
Right.
to get through it. Amerithrash is when you. Are they driving their own fire truck? What is going on? All the white noise is attacking us
kids
today.
Have risen.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Children
It's
rise up.
great. Okay, so Amerithrash are very much in-your-face games of take that. Big war games.
Okay.
Risk is
Okay.
an Amerithrash because you can just ruin someone's day taking them out. A games of elimination are Amerithrash, which is not ideal, but games where there's a lot of pointing and messing up, those are typically what you're looking for with those. Blood Rage, most war games, a lot of party games, Cash and Guns, Resistance, that sort of thing, are very Amerithrash, and they involve a lot of the party aspect. There's a lot of yelling and how dare you and how could you do this to me. And Scythe has a little bit of that. It's got a good blend of a little bit of Amerithrash to it, but for the most part, it is definitely a Euro game. And Euro games are where you're building yourself up. There may be some interaction. Typical ones, games where you build yourself up in Civilization and you look at what's happened. And when you're done with the game, maybe you didn't win, but you have something to look out at. Here are the points I earned. Here is the empire I made. Even though I lost, I have something to look out at and be proud of.
Yeah.
Maybe something to improve on, but it's almost more you're playing yourself. And like next time you play, yeah, you want to win,
Right.
but if you could just do better than you did last time, that's going to feel great. And that's what a Euro game is. And like I was saying, I am the Amerithrash guy. I love it. We are going to play, when Scythe is done, we're busting out some more games. We're going to beat each other to bits. And you're going to hate it because I just love them so much. But whereas I'm that, Evan, our Nordic player, he's Euro. He'll play at my Amerithrash. He beat me in one recently. It was hilarious. But he's very much a Euro player, and he loves taking one cube and turning it into 5 different other cubes, and finding an engine that turns all those cubes into other cubes, and just all the goofy stuff he can do for himself. And that's a lot of fun. And I love Euros. Overall, I'm an Ameritrash person. Scythe gives you that Empire feeling with a little bit of the war game, with all that conflict, that uneasiness, that because most war games it's I need to fight everyone, and this one it's do I want to fight?
Right.
There was a point in the game where you were trying to complete an objective by occupying forests. We all have a secret objective, and his was to occupy forests, and so he went to certain parts of the map. I was trying to just get from one side of the map to the other, and you had gotten in my way. And I kept telling you, get out of my way. I don't want to fight you. I will kick your butt. I'm just not in the mood to because I don't want to fight right now. And that's not a war game. War games are, I'm going to crush you.
Yep.
Here comes the steamroller. Hold on to your britches.
There's a lot of warning in this game, like a lot of
politicking.
Politicking. You're like, hey, can you not do that in your turn? Can you please? Can you not?
Yes.
And
I had to jump in and I took away some of your workers. Nobody ever dies. They just go back to the home base. But it's a crippling effect in this game. But it was so obnoxious, like that we had to do these things just because our politics weren't working out, so we had to make compromises, and that's what Scythe feels like. You're making all these compromises, and a lot of people aren't super warm to that idea in Scythe,
right.
But I like it. It feels very, very human in a board game, and I think that's my favorite aspect of Scythe, is that it feels very human, flawed, and messy, and that's the appeal. That's not going to appeal to everyone. I think there are better, maybe board games that are better numbers and mechanics and things like that. But the overall experience in Scythe is absolutely incredible in that I definitely feel like a human making choices rather than I am a pawn moving across, trying to make my optimal moves.
Right.
And that's maybe romanticizing the idea, but if you really enjoy it, why not?
Yeah.
So,
no, and I mean, the cool thing is, next game, like the second number 2 out of 8, lots of combat.
And that's the thing is we chose not to make it a Euro. I wanted to make it a Ameritrash, so we are going to have combat. We'll report back to you on that.
Yeah, and I mean after that it'll probably also change again.
Yeah, we'll give you. We're going to figure out ways to talk about the spoilers henceforth in a way that won't ruin the game if you're interested in getting in on that. But yeah, I recommend Scythe. I'm not going to talk too much about that until the very end. We'll have a big old Scythe palooza. So,
all right,
we have talked a lot. Scythe is something we've just been gushing about, and it's great. I think in the future ones, it's going to be more just a recap of, hey, here's what we've done, here's the epic story. So if you're keeping track, Russia's got one under their belt, but we have 8 games to go, and it only matters who wins the last one. However, this is the part we're going to do a transition. Before that, our little bridge is a little segment we like to call Tea Time. Yeah. Basically, I have hoarded a ridiculous amount of celestial teas in my shelf, and we are just going to do a little review on them until I run out. And so I know which one you have now.
So yeah, don't tell me what
it is. You describe it. I have it in a cloth here, hiding from you.
Ooh.
Yes, there's a mystery cloth in front of Jair here. But go ahead.
All right.
Smell this, taste
I mean,
it.
I've been drinking this for the whole podcast, but let me just. This is a fresh pot.
The one question I'll ask: what do you make of that aroma?
Well, it smells like my mom's hot cocoa. That's
fascinating.
That's what it smells like. Yeah. Very, Christmassy smells, kind of like wintry.
Okay. All right.
Not fall. Not some pumpkin spice crap.
Definitely more of a wintry feel.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Flavor wise, it still has that. If you put some sugar in this, I'm sure it will just taste like hot cocoa.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You are picking up some of the flavors they want you to.
Some cinnamon, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think there's cinnamon in there, but there's some earthy flavors.
Earthy flavors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to find out what this is?
Yeah, let's see what it is.
This is called Roast Aroma.
Oh.
This is one of their newer flavors. I love it. The full-bodied, caffeine-free alternative to coffee has been a trusted favorite for over 30 years. Whatever. Okay.
Who
It
cares?
blends the robust flavors of roasted chicory and barley, plus a hint of chocolate from roasted carob and a touch of cinnamon and allspice.
Oh, there you go.
So,
kill it with that cinnamon.
yeah, the cinnamon, the allspice chocolate thing, and
the barley, huh?
yeah, the barley. I think it just gives it more that fall winter flavor.
So, you know, interestingly enough, I know they make some beers
Mhm.
and they try to make them like the what are they called? The dark ones. That are
Stouts?
the
Scotch?
stouts. The stouts, you know, like make them very malty, and they use that malt to get those chocolatey flavors out there. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a decent flavor. I like the flavor of it, but like the name implies, the big hook to this one is that it stank. It is a very strong smell. I would say it's probably the strongest scent of all of the ones I have, but I love it. When the first time I boiled it, I was like, whoa. Wow, this place it smells like a log cabin in the middle of a blizzard. So yeah, if any of that sounds interesting, Roast Aroma, one of the newer flavors, and will not be the last time I drink it. I've enjoyed it quite thoroughly. How do you? Would you drink this again?
Yeah. So like I never was a tea person, not until I started living in California a while ago. We'll eventually get to that, but this is really good. And you know, it got lukewarm as we were talking, and I was just sipping on it. It still retains its good flavor on it.
Yeah, this is a really fun flavor. It was fun. Good tea time.
Good tea time.
Good tea time. Okay, so now for the part 2 of why we are here, and that is because along with trying games out and getting to hear see everything from your new eyes.
Drum roll.
Mm-hmm. Oh, drum roll, yes. And we are working on our own board game. This is... I've been hassled for years. Like, oh, you should make your own board game. I'm sure you could do it. And when I was told that, I couldn't. I was not remotely prepared for such a thing. And we've been... I've thought about it. I've thought of a whole bunch of ideas, but none of them were great. You can make a good idea, but like, how do you market a good idea when we live in like the best era ever to play board games? There are just so many of them.
Yeah.
They're breaking innovation.
Yeah,
you know, we played Unlock
they,
today. Yeah, Unlock, where they took an escape room concept and put it into card game format. You need to be great. And so I've looked at all these unique these ideas I've had, and they didn't feel unique. Go to space, things like that. And we had one idea that got stuck in my brain. I'm sure it has been done. I think I saw a Kickstarter the other day of somebody with a very similar theme, but it's not touched on barely at all. And our game that we're working on is a summer camp.
Summer of '86.
Summer of '86. In this game, you are camp counselors in a summer camp, and the game has a few different phases. First off, you are going to want to... The kids show up on the bus, and it's a bit of a draft system where you will draft them to your team. You are going to... then you're going to have a cabin full of kids that you recruited. The thing is, they all have needs. You know, they came to camp to get stuff done. Maybe they want to do sports. Maybe they want to hit the lake. There's all sorts of stuff they want to do, and it's your job to use, if you're familiar with board games, worker placement, get them to spots where you think they can have the most fun.
Right.
This will give them experiences, which come in the form of dice, and the dice will have certain numbers. Each kid will want maybe certain numbers. This is very much even pre-alpha.
Oh yeah.
A lot of this is more concepts, and that's why this podcast exists.
You scribbles and notebooks.
Yeah, scribbles and notebooks right now. We're going to be setting a date here soon. I'm not sure when. I would say by next week we want to create a deadline for a prototype. It's going to be a bad prototype. It's going to be rough, but we will have something that we can throw at people and say, play this. And basically, if you can, I'm trying to think of the right verb. You want to enlighten these kids. You want to fulfill these kids. You want to make sure they have the summer they want. And if they do, you'll get points for them. And that's the whole point of the game, is it plays over a certain number of weeks, which we're
Right.
still each week is drafting the kids, getting them in the cabin, and then, have them go around and experience different aspects of the game. And that's a lot of fun. I think in theory, it sounds like a really fun time. And then when you enlighten the kids, we're thinking of a fun campfire moment, kind of the end of each week. They can. You can
all
use
come together.
you all come together. You can share experiences, and we're thinking of a way you
Right.
can kind of trade dice. If I have a purple dice, which kind of act for the arts, theatrical, arts and crafts, and you need it, and I kind of need an orange one for sports, we can do these exchanges. We're thinking of adding a thing, what we call the s'more mechanic, where it's a different economy. We'll worry about that in other ones.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of pre-alpha gooey amorphous blob right now, but I think you get the idea behind it.
Yeah.
And I hope you, the listener, are hearing this like, okay, I'm kind of following along. And
we're basically building from the theme, because I guess like some people would be like, oh, I want to make this game, this concept for a gameplay mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And we're building more from the theme of it being a summer camp and giving people playing the game, giving them that feel of being camp counselors, which is really cool, because you would think maybe they would play as the kids would be an idea, but if you're playing as the counselors, you're trying to reach a different kind of goal. You're trying to make this kids have the most fun as possible, which, it's interesting. It's interesting to make the kids kind of like, would you say like an economy, or
the kids themselves, they are more objectives.
Exactly.
They're objectives.
Yes.
The economy comes from what you do with them,
Right.
what experiences you get. You touched on something important there. Board games are usually spawned from one of two things: a theme, which I like the escape room games. They all came from the theme of being an escape room, or a mechanic. Like Pictomania,
Right.
There's no theme. It's all very abstract. But the mechanic of we all draw, we all look around, that sort of thing. And that's how most games, I would venture to guess, are how they're designed. Is I have one of these two ideas and let's make it work. And we're definitely coming from the theme area. The thing with that, though, it makes it fun for me. I'm not at a point where I can conceive super original mechanics, but I can use existing mechanics to give a sense of theme. I was a counselor for a theater school, and my favorite aspect of this game right now is the drafting. In the theater school, we would have our classes. I taught like middle school kids mostly, and it was fine. But the early part of the day, we had to do a showcase. At the end of the week, we had to put on a show,
Right.
which was just more to show the parents that their money didn't go to waste. And that's fair.
Yeah.
But to do that, you didn't just take the kids you taught, because they were taught by a bunch of people. The day before the camp starts, all the kids show up to the theater, and they're just packed. And you bring them up by age groups, and they do little auditions where they have to say their name and how old are they. I'm Jair, and I'm 10. And they have to do it a big, bubbly personality. And it's great because a lot of them are super nervous because they're wondering if they're going to get cast. Spoiler, and they should have known. They all get cast. It's just who gets them. And we all have big notebooks, and we're writing down each person in each group that we like. And then when you're done, I love always sharing. The kids go up there, and they do their performance for us.
Yeah.
And then we torture them. Because, the thing is that you'd be like, okay, good job. Now do it in an Italian accent. And then some 8-year-old kid just looks at you like, what? And it was just fun because they're going to get cast. They're going to be shown a lot of love, a lot of good time. Goodness. So then we get on a draft where we would recruit these kids. And the lady who runs it, if ever Marianne listens to this, she was so upset with me. I did this, I think, 3 or 4 years, and I always got Sydney. There was a little girl named Sydney, and she was full of energy. She knew exactly what I wanted out of the shows. She could do everything I wanted. So I kind of promised, never told her, but it was just this understanding. Sydney, I'm going to cast you in all my shows. You're going to have a major part, if not the lead part, and we'll have a Lady Gaga dance break. I promise. We'll do this. And I would just always get her. I remember because, it was 3 years, because the second year I got her, and Marianne's like, oh, no, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have let you do that. She wasn't paying attention when it happened, and she missed it. It's like, oh, I wouldn't have let that happen. It's like, oh, sorry. And then my third year, because the first time was an accident. The third year, I was like, okay, guys,
where's Sydney?
I'll take Sydney. and Marianne just looks at me like, I thought you understood. And so I don't think a lot of summer camps do the draft thing with cabins, but that idea of what kids do I want to work with is super incredibly thematic to your situation, because the kids you're going to work well with, if it's a sports camp, if the board is full of sports stuff, then you're like, okay, I definitely want Sports McGee over here, the kid with calves larger than his head. I want him. This is going to work well. But then as you get lower the draft, artsy kid, this is not going to be his ideal summer. How can I'll take him. How can I work with him?
Would it be kind of like a schoolyard pick?
And that's if you're not familiar with the term draft, we're basically the whole group is going to get around. Someone starts the game and they choose somebody, kickball team style, and you're going to go around and you're all going to get kids, a certain number each, 3 or 4 pretty much, and they'll be your cabin, and then you have to use them on the board wisely to try and get the most out of them for the week.
That would bring a lot of interest in dynamics of the last person. You don't like people just not picking that one character. That makes it really, really interesting. Yeah, you were saying draft, and I wasn't fully grasping the concept of how that would work out. But yeah, if it's like that, you pick one, the next one picks another, next one picks another, which is something that can be also, messed around with if it's different rounds, and every round you do a draft, maybe how you did in the previous round, that dictates how you're going to approach that draft. Just something to put out there, I don't know.
And how they're going to draft is going to be something we're going to be working on a lot.
Right.
A lot. Yeah. Because how do you make it as fair as possible? Right. How do you open advantages for people without breaking the game? Stuff like that. The other thing is the actual placement of the kids. If little Jimmy goes to the basketball court and to get his sports stuff, then you get all your guys out on the field. Then what? And so one thing I want to do is a week, I kind of want them to go out on the board and then move once. And have the board just claustrophobic enough that maybe you get kind of where you wanted to go the first time, but after that there's not much room to move. And so you have to try and move strategically, trying to get the best out of the end of the day. And so everybody will be on the board, they'll move a second time, and that'll be the end of the week. Maybe we'll have the campfire thing with the exchange, and we start a new week up.
Yeah.
You do that, let's say 4 or 5 times, and that's the game. And I talk about how much I love Amerithrash. There's elbowing. Drafting always involves elbowing. You're gonna be like, you jerk! I wanted that. What's wrong with you? And I love those.
Yeah.
But it's still gonna be very much a Euro worker placement type of game. I'm going to pause on that and talk about, we're going to play these eventually. Scythe is getting in the way of this. There's very little originality in board games in the fact that I will play a game and I will be like, oh, that's so much like this game. It's so much like that game. Even with Scythe. We just gushed about it.
Yeah.
I played games like Scythe. I've played games like Pictomania. We talked about Pictionary.
Like I said, there's a lot of video games that are basically Scythe.
Yeah.
It's just that the way it's approached as a board game itself, that's the cool new, innovative.
Innovative. Yes. So I like this show, Venture Brothers. It's fantastic. We could make a whole podcast about how much I love Venture Brothers. But Doc Hammer, one of the creators, said something super important once, and he said, "There's." I'm totally paraphrasing this, but he said originality is not important. What matters is how genuine it is.
Right.
If you like Scythe is tons of different pieces that we've had out there before, not original, but they're so genuine in how they're put together and the earnest design behind it that it works. And I do love that game a lot. And that's what I feel with this is all the stuff in this game, nothing of it hasn't been done 1,000 times before. But they're put in a way that I feel are going to, when you play them, I think a good example is one of the games we're taking a lot from is a game called Ex Libris, Renegade Games.
I haven't played.
You have not played yet. I'm excited for you to play. And you're going to be like, yep, this is so much like the summer camp game. No, the game actually doesn't have a name yet, but summer camp game. But instead of it being about camp counselors, it's libraries. And you all have a different library. You're a unique kind of librarian. And you are gathering cards which have shelves of books on them. You have to get the shelves all put in the right way. But the worker placement's very similar to the ideas I've been running with. And if you played the two together, you're going to be like, wow, these are very similar. But I feel, I don't know if Ex Libris, I would say I feel like a librarian, but I do feel that satisfaction of worker placement enough that while the theme may not stick with me, the puzzle of the game does. And I want people to feel like, you know what, I feel like I'm a camp counselor. I am fighting to get Timmy. And I want to make sure Timmy has a good time. Maybe at the cost of Susie not having the best time she could, but and getting the gold stars off of that.
I mean, I don't know if you want this. I don't want this to feel like Wet Hot American Summer.
No.
But if you watch Wet Hot American Summer, you would understand how these camp counselors just kind of like how you want to feel managing these kids and like making them
as someone who has been a counselor, it feels like that. Even when you're trying to be innocent and not say swears and anything else, nope, you are going to be a counselor on Wet Hot American Summer at some point. You're either going to be really dumb, really obnoxious, or just so upset, and that's just natural. And I want the game to organically cause that. We get a lot of comments from people when I tell them this, like, oh, there's got to be a Jason Voorhees, there's got to be, Bigfoot. I'm not opposed to those, but right now, as we develop the game, just as we develop it, I kind of want it to be a pure summer camp experience because I feel a lot of that humor, a lot of the wackiness is going to come from being counselors. Like, ugh, you got the sports kids again. Like, well, now it's water time. We're hitting the lakes this week.
We want the gameplay to be what makes it fun, and the people that are playing it, we want them to make fun of each other or like just bring in the fun themselves. We don't want the game to be quirky. We do want it to be approachable and fun and nice looking and whatever, and a level of whimsicality to it. But we don't want people to laugh at the board game. We want people to laugh at what they do with the board game.
We're having another moment. This is where this is your new eyes looking at it. What I've told people is that I only believe in now all the rules are meant to be broken, mind you. But one of my rules is that humor in board games has to be organic.
Right.
A great example is I do not like Cards Against Humanity. It's all the jokes are on the card for you, and they make some people laugh, and that's fine. Whatever. They're edgy, and I don't care for that, but whatever. But it's just so processed that when those cards come around again, you aren't laughing at it.
Right.
It's just you're going through the motions, and I hope Ryan Gosling on a unicorn makes you laugh. A Fun Employed, if you get a chance to play, it's very much a Cards Against Humanity style game where you have cards and you have to play them and who has the best ones. But the cards are not that hilarious. They say like, uncomfortably moist, which is kind of a funny word, or the incredibly hairy, things like that. But these are descriptions of a character you're playing trying to get a job, and you have to tell people why these things are on your resume. If the job is fashion model, why do you have Harry in your resume? And you have to explain that. And your explanation is going to make that hilarious. So the next time Harry is drawn, it's going to be for vacation travel agent. And like, why does Harry help you with travel agent? Well, people want to get away from me. You don't know, and you come up with these funny ideas. And one of my favorite games is The Resistance. It's a sci-fi dystopian game, and nothing in the game hints at any humor whatsoever. Right. It looks super serious, and it's nothing but screaming at each other and yelling at each other and accusing each other, sometimes justifyingly, sometimes not. And that's organic humor. And I can play The Resistance 1,000 times. I have never once opened up The Resistance and played one time. It's always 3, 4, 5 times because it's quick and people love to laugh and yell. So I'm not looking for that necessarily, and I'm not saying that if we do incorporate things like Bigfoot or Jason Voorhees or something like that,
a radioactive puddle.
Yeah, a radioactive puddle, a talking can of
Benjamin.
Yes, just John Benjamin is a character in the game. I'm not opposed to these things. Right. I kind of want to build summer camp and make sure it can stand on its own. And then either find weird ways to add those things in, or maybe look at expansion in the future. But that's also the thing; it's in the future. I want to make sure this game stands on its own, at least can function as a game. I do fear it could possibly suffer from lack of personality. That is a possibility. It could be a little too stale. And then we can work on that.
Right.
But I do want to focus mostly on making the summer experience, and that's the main goal. We've talked about a lot of the flavor of the game. Like I said, this is all about being transparent. So we talked about goals. I talked to Tom Fowers. Tim Fowers. I'm an idiot. Tim Fowers is a game developer, I believe based out of Utah, and he makes his own games, and he is fantastic. He's responsible for Burgle Brothers, Fugitive, Walkstar. If you get a chance to play any of these, you've played a couple.
I mean, Fugitive and Walkstar, and so far just
incredible. He's very incredibly stylized. He's an indie publisher. He makes all of it. He puts all of his own games out on the shelf. Really impressive work. And I talked to him, and I was like, advice, just genuine advice, and he says set deadlines, set goals, accomplish them, and when you're done, make more. And that just is going to push you to get farther. We're going to work by next week. We are going to make that's our first deadline, is to make a deadline for the prototype. It can barely be playable. We could probably have more holes in the rules than Swiss cheese, but make sure we have that going. The other one we discovered last night.
Oh, yes.
We were at Eton, and we were talking about what we were talking to Caitlin, one of the employees there, about what we wanted to accomplish, and she had mentioned that her new future husband-to-be, Kenny, had actually designed a game and took it to Gen Con. When I heard this, I'm thinking, like, you got a booth? Because I don't think we'll be booth ready in a year, and we can afford that and everything else. They have an exhibit hall for people selling their game. You can basically buy for like $150. You get a spot there, and you put up your little game that's held together with toothpicks and gumption, and people will come down and play it. Maybe try to break it, not physically, but like break the numbers and say your game can be won just by not doing anything or things like that.
Right.
And possibly interested investors, things like that. And that's our long-term goal. By next Gen Con, I would like to be able to get get to that exhibit hall and have the summer camp there for people to try out.
Yeah. So we have a little under a year, right?
A little under a year, but that's a lot of time.
It is.
And we're making good progress.
Yeah.
I think we have. I'm flipping through the book here. We have kind of solidified what do we need to look at to make this game good. We've said a lot of things out loud, but I think a great example is we talked about the campers.
Right.
How many are we to have? What are they going to do? What do they say? What are their point values? How do you round all these numbers out in a way that makes sense?
Right.
Because, why, if a kid's worth 2 gold stars rather than 5, is that really a lot of points? Is there somebody worth 10? Because if there's worth 10, the difference between 2 and 5 is not that big of a deal. If 2 is a huge number and there's a 3, a 3 is as big as it gets.
So it would be balancing these numbers out. So whatever cards come out of, cards or pieces, we still don't know what these drafted
in a
campers would be.
Perfect happy world. I want to get a sack, and it looks like a backpack. But and they're tiles. I'm going to throw games out. When we do this, I'm going to talk about games that I've played. We're not going to do reviews of them. There will be games, most of which Jair's not played yet. But Castell. If you look up Castell and you look up the game, there's a big sack, much bigger than it needs to be. But there's tiles inside, and you reach inside and pull them out. And I think that's just such a satisfying action. I would love to do that. If it's not cost effective, they can be turned into a deck of cards.
Right.
But if I can avoid cards, that'd be great.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it's there. But there's that. The experiences, the dice. How many different kinds of experiences? Right now, I think we're looking at 5 different types. Sports, water activities, arts, nature, and kind of a nerd one, like, geek camp. That way, those can be different dice you throw out. What are the locations of the camp? Because one thought is another game, go crack open a computer or whatever and look up Altiplano. Altiplano, and it's got basically, it looks like a modular board. A modular meaning like you can use certain pieces in the game. They're not. It's just that there isn't as much a board as there is pieces of a board, and you'll take your little workers and they'll jump from one spot to another in pieces rather than the whole thing. When I saw that, my thought process was, what if this piece, kind of imagine like a kidney-shaped cardboard piece with a lake on it. Okay, so the camp this week has a lake. Eventually, maybe after round 2 or 3, it switches out, and now it's a basketball court. So what was good for water activity now is going to be a sports camp.
Right.
And so not only do the campers change every week, but occasionally the objectives on the board will change.
As well.
And so we talked about strategy and tactics, and I'm just a huge fetish for tactician. That's, I think, what I love is that if it's going to mix up, you have to be you have to adapt. And I love adapting in games.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, that is
and
cool.
So I do see that we'll have locations that are going to switch. I don't know how often. I don't know how many locations we have per experience. If there's going to be events, if we draw a card that says it's basketball camp, so there's got to be the basketball court. Or if we just draw new pieces. So there's other stuff we haven't even really discussed yet. The campfire thing is very rough.
Right.
We're barely touching that right now. And all of this are numbers. They're figuring out balance. They're figuring out importance, the fluidity. A lot to look at. The last thing I want to touch on is just, again, flavor. The flavor of the theme. We call her Comeback Becky.
Comeback Becky.
Games have a thing called a comeback mechanic. And when you're falling behind, when the game throws you a bone. It says, man, you're not playing that well.
Right.
A video game I used to play called Dokapon Kingdom. If you ever get a chance, it's the nastiest, meanest version of Mario Party. But you are tracked by how much gold you're acquiring. And if somebody is significantly far behind, they can be tempted with darkness. And you hit a certain part of the board, you give up all your belongings, and you become the Darkling for 2 weeks in the game. And you just become this second, like a demigod, going around taking towns away from people and just beating the tar out of them. You cannot beat the Darkling. Unless you guys rig it. People have done that where they've all okay, we're going to make it so you're the Darkling and I'm going to beat you. Okay, get ready for it. And they just destroy you and mess with you. And it's a fantastic way to even the playing field.
That's awesome.
It's so good.
That's good.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. So
Comeback
mean.
Becky.
So with Comeback Becky, the thought process is, if you're a camp counselor, the camp is invested in you. They want you to succeed. And then when you're struggling a lot, they get concerned. I'm not even talking about the board game. It's just, and so the camp manager will show up and be like, hey, do you need help? I remember when we were doing Missoula Children's Theater, we're not going to go into my whole life story here, but I did that where you were a director for kids every week. And our first week, they sent someone, a veteran with us, somebody who had done it for years and years and years, who could hold our hands basically and show us how to do it. It's just really helpful, helps you get back on your feet. And so the idea is the camp manager, Becky, is going to, at the end of every round, look at who's struggling, and whoever is the farthest behind is going to get is going to become Becky's assistant.
Right.
And the idea is Becky's behind you, and she's going to help you out. And she's just, she's just in the way, and she's that really obnoxious, like, oh yeah, it's Becky again. But at the same time, you're really happy that they're there for you, but really insisting. And I just
know a Becky.
You all know a Becky, and I want to put a Becky in the game. I was trying to come up with a different name. I was like, no, Becky is the perfect name. She looks just her. She's got big eyes, big smile. Can I talk to your manager haircut? And she's gonna help you out.
She's wearing capri pants.
Yeah, and you don't get a choice. She's gonna help you out. But maybe she lets you get the first pick of the draft. Yeah. Maybe she lets you get an extra kid or get an extra spot. Something that's going to just not make or break you. It's so easy to do that in a way that, last round, well, I'm just going to put myself in the back so I can do a giant catch-up when I get Becky. But just a little bit of push that you should be able to get back into the game.
Back on track, yeah.
Because that was the thing we encountered in Scythe. Granted, it was, I feel, more of a head game. He put himself out. But when I kicked that guy over, and I took all of his stuff, beat up his faction leader, and I took everything from him, he never came back. He kind of sat in the corner. And granted, I crippled him really hard.
Yeah, you did.
But not as hard as he ended the game. And I think it's because it was in his head. So if Scythe had a form of comeback Becky, where like after a while it's like, hey, reinforcements have shown up to throw some help out, that sort of thing. I want to make sure she's easy to understand.
Right.
We should discuss where we want this game to be. Mm-hmm. Where do you feel this game? Where do we want it to end? Like, where do we want it to end up as far as thickness, approachability, accessibility to people? Where do you feel?
Well, we've talked about this. That we want this to be a medium game. We want this to be something that's approachable. A game that you can bring to your family instead of Scythe.
Yeah,
you can bring to your family and say like, hey, let's play some of this summer camp game. It still has a lot of very intricate mechanics, intricate like strategy, and it's not your usual game of life, Monopoly, Jenga.
Yeah,
whatever.
Things kind of play themselves.
Yeah, but it's still approachable enough that you can play it quick. Not something like Scythe at all.
No.
We still don't know, how, we have different rounds. We don't know how many rounds we want it to have. Mm-hmm. We don't still know how long these rounds are gonna be. If they're gonna be like phases in the round, stuff like that. Which we will sit down and come up with what we want to do with these kind of things. But definitely, we are shooting for something, not like a 15, 20, not even 30-minute game, but not a 2-hour, 3-hour game that requires everyone to read a
book. And that's the thing is if you get a chance, I recommend anybody who is not familiar with board games to pick up Ticket to Ride. Okay. It's incredibly light. Yeah. It could not be easier to understand. You pick up cards, you play cards. They put out trains on the railroads, and even that sounds more complicated than it is. It's I brought it to my family. They all rolled their eyes. We sat down and they all got it. Right. It took a couple of them a few turns, but they all got it. This will not be Ticket to Ride. Mm-hmm. This is not going to be light. It's going to be medium. Your family is going to have to trust you. They're going to have to say, okay, we'll give it a shot. But if somebody says, I'll give it a shot, they will pick it up.
I also think the theme itself is going to make it gonna give it an extra approachability.
Yes. No, you're absolutely. That's one of the things. Is I want this to be a game that board gamers will be like, oh yeah. They look at that like, I could learn that. I could learn that easily. Yeah, we could be playing that in 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And families will look at like, oh, this would be fun to take home and learn. I want it to be in that wonderful nougaty center of approachability. And it's going to be, I want it to be a little more fulfilling than games like Ticket to Ride, which are light. We all laugh and have it.
Yeah.
You know, we want everyone to be a little invested in their thoughts on it and everything. I think the worker placement will displace and disrupt a little of the lighter end of the crew. But
yeah.
I think if you played like
it would be
three...
taking that worker placement concept of these other games that are way more intricate and bringing it down a notch so other people that aren't used to the idea of worker placement. I mean, before I met you, I didn't even know what worker placement was, and I hadn't played a worker placement game at all. But now I feel comfortable understanding, like, oh, this is how it goes, and I would want, like, if I didn't know board games at all, I would want to play this game to learn what a worker placement
yes.
is.
This is one, I would love this to be an introduction to the worker placement. And I played a lot of them, but I wouldn't even say I'm necessarily proficient in them. So we're going to keep playing more of them and get better and get better ideas from them. Yeah. We're taking ideas from other people as influence, and I think in the process we're going to have a product that is is a fulfilling tactical game that doesn't. If we can make the rule book like 3-4 pages long, that'd be excellent. Prove people this is how much learning you have to do, nothing at all, but still be fulfilling like heavier games.
Right.
I think that's where we want to be. We have a long road to go. This game could change immensely.
It's true. Like Kenny said, he came to Gen Con to that what is it called?
The exhibit hall.
The exhibit hall. He went in with, well, at least starting the board game when he was making it, he came with a huge board game, huge spiral-looking thing.
Massive spiral.
And then it ended up being just a little, like, couple of inches long, little, like, board.
Yeah, it went from being a giant spirally, like a board game that spiraled inside itself, to a block of 10 spaces with a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
And that just came from people criticizing it and saying, hey, you're just not making this as simple as it can be, and it's not optimized. And that could happen to us.
Yeah, it could.
The one I'll remember is I was talking to Tim, and Tim's Walk Star. It's a game where you play an a Chinese family with a restaurant trying to keep it open after the bank's trying to foreclose on it. And originally it was a zombie game. It was a zombie.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a zombie game, and it just transformed. And he's like, "Yeah," and I'm so glad because I am quite done with zombie games. So I was very happy to hear that. And awesome. You know, we could get rethemed. It's possible. It's doable. But I feel like the love that went into this came from the camp, and I feel it's a very universal thing.
And like we said, this came from a theme, not a gameplay mechanic.
It could change,
but it could change.
But that's the idea. So basically, we've laid it out for you in a way that we'll be talking about updates to the game as we go along.
Yeah.
This is the longest episode we want to make. We're going to be hitting close to almost 2 hours. I'm going to try and trim it down a bit, but we definitely don't want to make it this long again. Hour 15 if we can.
Yeah.
But now you know what we do. You know who we are. Bunch of escape room goons who want to make board games and play board games. The last thing we'll end with today, because we don't have any today, but we will take questions, comments through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I would say right now we'll post a couple days beforehand if you have questions, and then we'll read the comments from that. And outside of that, we don't have any of those today. But if you have any questions on the game, games to play, thoughts on things, if you have an opinion on something we were discussing the week before, we might open with those. So if you've played Pictomania, Unlock, Scythe, and you want to comment on any of those, we will, by all means,
and not even questions. If you just want to say something, if you want to have a comment, a story about a board game, I think that would be cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you have anything on those, leave that. If you have questions, we'll answer them at the end of the podcast here. Again, this was our big setup, our big exposition. We've gushed about Scythe, and we've explained in great detail the idea of this game. And I feel in doing so, I feel this is where we can call it a day.
Yeah.
Jair, you got anything more you want to add?
No. Just have a great day, everybody, and enjoy your tea.
All right, yeah. Until next time, take care.
Take care.